All right.
Is going?
Yes.
All
People
right.
from Brazil online. So.
I think it's my parents.
Hello from Brazil.
Pessoa.
Hello from Brazil.
I think it's my colleague.
All right. Welcome everybody for another edition of DevTools Porto. Thank you for coming today. So just a quick few words about DevTools Porto. We are a community of developers that want to help other developers, getting up to speed with the newest and the greatest technologies around. Where you can find us to recommend or to check out new events on Twitter, on Discord as well, and on YouTube. Typically under the handle of ReviewPad. So ReviewPad is a company here in Porto, a startup, and we are promoting the DevTools ecosystem. And so today we have Giovanna Mascarenhas. She's going to be talking about Django and building APIs with Django REST framework. So without further ado, Giovanna.
Thank you.
All right, there you go.
Giovanna, before you start, your screen, I think you have to reshare it with us. It's not, if you don't mind.
Okay. Just a second. Share screen. Okay.
Just fixing your name. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is on.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello, mom and dad. So today we're going to talk about building APIs with Django REST framework. Django REST framework is a Python framework to build APIs. So I wanted to bring this subject to discuss with you because today I think Python is a high subject in the market, and we have a lot of frameworks today to work with Python. And I feel that Django is still on top. So nice to meet you. My name is Giovanna. I'm from Brazil. I am 27 years old and I am a software engineer since 2018. I'm working in Five9 as a Python engineer. So I wanted to show you the most used frameworks that we have in Python that are Django REST, Flask, and FastAPI. Flask and FastAPI are micro frameworks. So depending on what you want to build, maybe Flask and FastAPI is going to be very useful because you can build from scratch. Django already have a lot of things that comes in hand. So if you want to give a fast solution for your company or for your clients, I think Django REST is a very good start. So what is Django? Django is a web framework that was built from developers built this framework in a journal. So was an internal technology, but they decided to make the Django open source and free to everybody use it. And it's true, it's super fast and super secure and scalable. This is the history of Django that I told you, that was created between 2003 and 2005 by the team in the journal. Here are the main features that I like very much in Django. I think it's very easy to start a project. So the object relational mapping part, I think it's the best solution in Python because it's very easy to interact with your database and create your tables and entry data in your input data, in your database. The friendly URLs, it's very easy and nice to have. The internationalization part, I think it's very useful when you are building a software that you want to sell. So imagine that you are a startup and you are building things in Portuguese, but you want to sell to America, for example. With a few configurations, you can make your whole project in another language. Here it's how the request response cycle works in Django. So, for example, this part here, web server, you don't need to worry when you are in developing mode because Django already gives to you a simple server to test your project. So I will not explain details, but just so you have an idea how things work. Here I wanted to show a few companies that use Django. Actually, for Instagram, if you want to see, they have a talk on YouTube explaining how they use Django on Instagram, but a lot of famous companies use it to scale the project, and it's very useful too when you have a lot of data. So Python and Django working together for that, it's amazing. Okay, so what about Django REST framework? Because of the Django, it's very famous and easy to use and have a huge community. So you can find a lot of things on Stack Overflow or another forum website. They decided to create Django REST framework to build RESTful APIs. So basically we have Django and you have Django REST framework that comes inside Django. So you can reuse the models, you can reuse the URLs, technology, you can reuse everything that Django gives to you. Okay, so I wanted to create a simple API in Django REST framework and to show you how fast it is to build an API. So I thought, okay, maybe if we can give a context to everyone. So imagine that we have a client called Jose. I don't know why I choose this name, but imagine the guy calls Jose, and he has a small business. And he wants to create a simple API because he wants to create an app in the future that's going to have a front-end framework using any technology that he wants. And he wants two things. He wants to have a backend to connect with this front-end, and he wants to have control about the data that he has. So Django has an amazing feature that is called Django admin. So imagine that all your data can be in one place. You as a developer don't need to build from scratch. So you don't need to worry with the template part. You don't need to worry about the backend side. You just need to add a few configurations and you're gonna give this to your client. And I'm gonna show you. Okay, so the first thing, we need to install Django. I'm using a Python environment. Here you see Venv.
Do you think you can maybe make? I think because you're full screen, there's a margin around the.
Okay.
Perhaps if you take it out of full screen.
Oops.
No, if just
need to maximize.
Yeah, maximize without being full
the
screen.
top of the.
Can you help me, please?
Let me see if I can help.
Okay.
So, because it's very small here as well. Oh, Jesus. Okay, let's see if we can.
It's double click in the top corner.
Oh
You
yeah.
are maximize. Not in this. No. Yeah.
You go like this.
Okay, it's could be.
Okay.
Sorry, Joanne.
No worries. Thank you very much. So as I was saying, we need to, in Python, actually, it's a good practice to create this kind of virtual environment like this. All the package that you need to install, it's not going to conflict with the package that you have in your computer. So to do that, we're gonna install Django. So pip install Django. When you do like this, already install the last version of Django. Okay, just a second. Okay, so now to create a project in Django, we need to run Django admin, start project, and let's call project. Okay, if you see here, you have a folder. So Django creates for you this folder with the name of the project that you gave. So let's check the files that we have here. So you have this manage.py file. So every time that you want to run a command that's going to affect your Django project, you need to interact with manage.py. So imagine that you want to create your tables in the database or run the server, you need to work with the manage.py. Here in project, already gives to you default files. So asg.py and wsj.py are the files that we use for deployment. And settings, all the configuration from the project is there. And the urls.py is where you put your URLs. Okay, so now we need to install Django REST framework. To do that, it's most the same thing. So pip install Django REST framework. Okay. It's an important point when we are working with Django that we have these call things apps. So imagine that you have a blog and you want to divide your blog in sections. For example, writers, blog posts, and any module that you want to create in your project. We call that in Django apps, and it's a very organized way to work in Django, because imagine that I am developing the project and we have another developer, so we don't conflict. My work is not going to affect directly the other developer, just when we interact with each other. So I'm gonna go back one folder. And to create an app in Django, it's Python, the manage.py that I talked about, and the start app API. Now Django creates for us the API folder. So let's see what we have. We have this admin.py that I told you that we have an admin interface for the client, for example, to have the control about the project. So admin.py already is there. You don't need to worry. Just add our models that we call in Django, because I forgot to tell, but Django is based on template, models, and views. So it's MVT architecture. So all the time that you create a new model, you can add here in admin.py to go to the admin interface that I will show you. The apps.py, it's information related with the app that we created. Migrations is the technology that Django used to interact with your database. The models is where you create your database tables. Tests is for unit tests or any kind of test that you want to create. And the views is where you put the logic, the business logic of your project. I have a personal opinion about views. I prefer to create another file just to work with the business logic and pass in views what we need to show to the client. So in documentation and a lot of tutorials teach to put the business logic in views, but I think the project's gonna be very messy when it's growing. So I like to create another file for that. But okay, now we need to test our project and see if it's working. And I hope it is working. So let's go to our, okay, everybody can see.
Perhaps you should zoom in a little bit. Or, no, I think it's going to be the same thing.
It's okay.
It's okay? Can you see?
Maybe zoom in a little bit more.
That's perfect.
Like this, or?
Yeah, I think like that you can already see the file name.
What's a little bit? Okay. So here we have the project. So before we start, actually, we need to add a few things in the settings file because Django needs to know what we created and what the kind of package and libraries that we are passing to Django. So let me, here in installed apps is everything that's going to interact with the project. So imagine that you want, for example, you create an app and you want the people log in with Gmail. You're going to put here install apps and in the middleware. The middleware takes care of the security part. So we're going to add here the app that we created, that is API. And here we're going to add Django, doesn't get the name. We're going to pass the REST framework. Okay, I think now we can test. Okay. And to do that, to start our server, I'm going to run server. And okay, when you see this kind of message, it's because everything is working. And the red message is because Django already gives to you, for example, the authentication part and the login part. So when you apply all the migrations, Django will create their tables in the database. That actually we use SQLite, but later in the project it's good to change the database because SQLite is not scalable and it's not good for production. So let's check the, just wanted to, oh God. Okay, I can't, okay. So to see if it's working or not, I'm gonna zoom out. And it's working. So when you see this, it's because it's working.
Perhaps can you zoom in a little bit on the page?
Oops. It's not here.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get back to the terminal. Okay, let's stop the terminal. And now we're gonna create the tables that I told you for the authentication and everything. So to do that, we're gonna run Python manage make migrations. That's gonna create the table for us. And now we need to synchronize what we created. I mean, we didn't create anything, but what Django created. Okay, now we need to see the Django admin. Remember, the client wants to see the data that we have, that he has in the project. So to do that, we're gonna create for him, imagine a username and a password. So I'm gonna run create super user. And here I will put my name. I'm gonna be blank. And if you see this, like this part here, when you are creating a project and you want to have an authentication and you want to have a login, you can reuse all these things that Django gives to you. So you don't need to create by scratch if you don't want it. Okay, now let's run again the server. And test our new admin interface. Okay, so here, when you create our tables in the database, you're gonna see here that you're gonna do in a few minutes. But sometimes I already saw in a few projects that the client only wanted to have the control about the data. So what we did was we customized all the Django admin website to this client. And we didn't need to worry about creating new templates, worrying with the JavaScript part. Was very useful. So now we're gonna create the product table for our client. Okay, to do that, we'll see our models. So here, we're gonna create all the things that are gonna interact with the database. To do that, we're gonna create class in Python. To create a class in Python, you just call class and product. Here we're gonna call the models model. Just a minute. Okay, and our product table is gonna have a product name. So here I'm gonna add product name, and it's gonna be the type short field. It's gonna have a max length of 200. And here, variable's name, it's gonna be the name that you're gonna see in Django admin. So product name. The product needs to be a description. So let's create a description. And I'll do the same thing again. Max length. Product description. Okay, for now, our client only needs the product name and the product description. So let's return this in a beautiful way. So, oops. Just we return the product name. And okay. For this table, for us to see this table in the admin interface, we need to tell Django, okay, we created a new table, please put in admin part. So here in admin, I'm gonna import the table that I created. So from API models, that is the file that we have, import product. And here I'm gonna call the admin site register, and I'm gonna register my product. And now I need to create, actually we need to create this table in the database and synchronize. So to do that, we're gonna run again, make migration, created for us. And we have these 001 inside migrations. It's very useful when you have more than one developer or you want to check the status of your database, in what time you created the table A or table B, these kind of things. So now we need to synchronize the change that we did. Okay, let's run again the server. And let's see the table. Okay, and here we have API, that is the app that we created, and the products. So we can create one here. For example, product 01, nice product. Okay, so the first part of our project, we can show this to our client. So maybe he can work with this Django admin part, and we can customize, for example, putting the colors of his brand or whatever he wants. So now remember that in the beginning, he asked to us to create an API because in the future, he wants to create an app. So we want to create now using Django REST framework. So let's go back to our code. And we're gonna use, I forgot the name. Sorry. We're gonna use not technology, but we're gonna use a tool that Django REST framework already gives to us. Because we created a model, we can create our API based on the model that we created. So for that, we're gonna create a file called serializers. And the serializer file takes care of the serialization of the data. So you don't need to worry in turning your data in JSON and everything. It's very easy to use. We just need to import a few packages. So from REST API, frameworks, or import serializers. Okay. And we need to call our model too. So from api.models, import product. And now we need to create the same way that we created our model using classes. So product serializer. And we're gonna call the serializer dot model serializer because we are using the model. If you don't want to create the serializers using your model, you can use another package. Okay, so now we need to tell Django what are the model class that we want to use. So I'm gonna pass here the model name and what are the fields that I want to show. So I want to show everything. So I just need simple do that all. Okay, this part of the serialization is done. Now I need to create two more things and we are done. I need to go to views that I don't know if you remember, but I talked about the business logic and everything that you need to show to the client part, you put here in the views, like I said. So because we are not working with a lot of requirements and logic and this kind of stuff, we can add here what we want to expose. So I need to call my models again, import product, and we need to call our serializer. Okay, and one more thing, this render thing here, you use it when you are creating the front-end part inside Django that you can create too. You can add templates, you can add HTML documents, CSS, JavaScript. So we're not gonna use it, so I'm gonna delete. And from REST framework, import view sets. Okay. So here I will create a class, but actually Django works with functions too. So it's up to you to choose what we want to use it. So I'm gonna call this product view set, and I'm gonna call here view set, model view set. Again, you see the model here because we are working based on the model, but you can use another class that you want. And here I'm gonna call this carry set thing means, okay, I'm gonna call the model that I want to work. So I'm gonna call product here, object all. What this means? That means, okay, bring to me everything that you have inside products table. So you don't need to put select, You can do this like this. And now we need to say to Django what's going to be our serializer class. That's going to be product serializer. And if you want, you can pass the HTTP methods that you want. But I want to do a test, and I will not pass any HTTP methods. Okay, so this thing is done. The last part, it's going to be two, two things to finish. We need to create a urls.py file. Django already creates for you here in the project, but it's a good practice to create the URLs inside your app. So all the apps that you create have their own URLs file. So here I'm gonna call a few things. I'm gonna call Django URLs from Django import path and include. I need to call REST framework routers. So because we created here in the views, we are working with view sets and model view sets. We can work with this routers thing. So you don't need to configure your routers and your URLs. And we need to call the view that we created now. Okay, so here I'm gonna pass the router. That's gonna be routers, default router, and actually register my new API endpoint. So it's gonna be products. And here we have views and the view that we created, the view class. And here we need to tell Django what we created. So right here, just a second, it's gonna be easier. Okay. And I'm gonna pass here API. So everything that is related with API, the endpoints for our API, it's gonna be API and the name of the API that you want. I'm gonna use the include and I'm gonna pass router. Okay, now we need to tell to the project what we created. So here I'm gonna import, so from API import URLs as API URLs. And here too, I'm gonna pass include. And as you can see here, the admin endpoint is already here. Django already gives to you. You don't need to worry. I'm gonna pass a new path. It's gonna be empty here. And I will include the API URLs. Okay, now I think it's done. I'm gonna just stop and I'm gonna run again. So let's check the new endpoint that we created. So to see that, we're gonna need to add localhost API, the name of the endpoint that I created now, and here they are. I didn't build or touched in any HTML templates. Django REST framework gives this to you, so it's very useful and easy to use. If you want to work with Postman, for example, or another kind of tool, you can work too. But personally, I like to use this interface. I think it's very easy. So let's create another product. And remember that I didn't tell Django that I want to post or edit anything. So here I'm gonna call product 02 and okay. And okay, go, please. Okay, I don't know what's not going, but should go. Let's check.
We are adding, but they get its only for one. I think they point to the last one. HTTP 201 created. It's look like okay. And UI created 9 equals product 00.
Yeah, okay. Sorry guys, I didn't see. I was just checking if you are paying attention. So here I created a lot of products and it's done. So now imagine that I want to edit the product with ID number 5. Just add here in the URL ID number 5, and I'm gonna edit the name. I'm gonna do a put, and it's here, product number 5. And if I want to delete, I will delete too. So now we can show to our client that we have an admin interface that he can work with in his business, and we have our first API that he can integrate with another front-end technology. So it's not here. It's done. Any questions?
All right, let's take first.
Thank you.
You have a mic in case somebody wants to. Let me see if you want. All right.
Any questions?
I just turned on the mic, guys.
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So this is an API, a REST API, but usually what is the tech stack, like maybe the front-end tech stack? You said it can be any front-end framework,
Yes.
but I guess in the market, usually people have their favorite ones. With Django, like people have a favorite one to work with, Django?
Actually, what I hear is people like to work with Vue, but the most of the companies use React. They say that Vue works better with Python, but I think because React, it's a personal opinion. I think it's more famous than Vue. So I think the most of the companies using React and not Vue.
Actually, I didn't know Django very well, and I used to think it was a server-side rendering framework, not an API one. You know, can we use it for server-side rendering?
Yes, yes.
You can return just any HTML and.
Yes, actually, I already worked in a lot of projects that the front end was inside Django.
Oh, okay.
Yes, with JavaScript and everything that we have, for example, not everything, but the most of the components that we have in React, you can use in the front end inside Django.
That's really cool.
Imagine that you are a small company and you don't know how to work with React or any other JavaScript framework. You can do this only with HTML, CSS, and simple JavaScript.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There is a question from the... I'll just read. There's a question from the live audience. What is the role of templates in Django, and how do they differ from static HTML files?
Actually, the static HTML files, it's inside templates. So every time that you want to create the front end part, you're gonna put inside templates.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that's all. I mean, anything else from audience? Yes.
So, you're welcome. Okay, I had been working with Django a long time ago in 2007
Okay.
in the Culture Minister of Brazil. I'm Brazilian as well. So there I didn't have using Django for REST API, only for the backend and the front end using JavaScript, as you told, the simple way. What I remind is Django is very simple, but nowadays I know that Flex is more useful than Django if you compare with Django.
Okay.
How can you compare between one and another one nowadays? Because I think Python nowadays is more for the AI than the common things that Django support.
Yeah, actually, I already worked in a startup that they was building the product with Flask because they wanted to build everything from scratch. So when you don't want that, you want, when you start the project, you want to go to the middle of the way, you choose Django because it already gives to you a lot of things. So in the beginning of the project, you don't need to worry about the security part. You don't need to worry in knowing very, very well SQL. For example, you can use the ORM. So I think that when you want to create everything from scratch and you want to customize like your project the way you want, you can do this too in Django. But I think when you have this kind of thing to do, the people go with Flask. But nowadays, I see the people that, okay, I want to customize my project from scratch, choosing Django, because I think today you're gonna give to the client your solution in the first time. So I think Django helps more with Flask, depending on, okay, I need to put my product in the market and I need to validate with my clients if my project works or not. So I think Django for that, it's a better solution than Flask. And of course, depending on the side of a project too, I think Django, it's better with this kind of mindset. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there's another question from the audience, and it says, what are some of the most common middlewares in Django? And what is the one that you use the most and why?
I think the most used are the authentication, because you don't need to build from scratch by yourself. I always use the authentication one, and the other that I see when we have web projects, I see a lot when you want to log in your app using your social medias. So I think this one of the most used middlewares, but I always like to use the authentication middleware.
As well as admin.
Yes. I worked in a project once that we created all the project with only using Django admin. So the client needed a fast solution, and we provided using Django interface that you can customize.
The layout.
Yes, yes. You can customize like the tables, how you show to the client. You can add the search feature. It's very nice. I really enjoy it.
And the usability, it's easy.
Mhm.
It's not so complicated.
Yes. Yes.
But what kind of clients are these? Like they're software people, right? Like, or you were building an API for a small business that, like, is it a tech company as well? The clients?
Depends. For example, I already worked on a client that was a SaaS product. So I already worked in a software house that was mid-business that needs a solution. For example, in Brazil, we have Sebrae, that it's a huge company that works with small entrepreneurs. And the software house that I worked was responsible for all the softwares. So we built a lot of softwares using Django for them. Yeah.
Okay. Economic of ministry in Angola use Django as well.
Yeah, Spotify uses Django. Instagram uses Django, like Dropbox uses Django. It's amazing technology.
Awesome, very cool. I think there is a wrap. All right, guys. Thank you so much, Giovanna.
you. Thank you,
Yeah, it
guys.
was amazing, and see you next time. Right?
Thank you.